Welcome to Deck Analysis and Testing. Today we are looking at Red Eyes Zombie. Well, some people call this zombies. I like to call it Red Eyes Zombies because it is a different version from the one that uses Spelodrock and Zombie World. Instead, this version uses a new skill that basically converts any zombie in your hand into Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord, a medium-sized guy that revives itself in your turn and revives other zombies in your opponent's turn. With only one structure deck and no packs from boxes, sitting on Dragon Lord is probably the best you can hope for, which you might realize isn't very good at all. But the deck does get a lot better when you include the recent zombie support from the new box, which we will also go over in a minute. First, let's have a look at the zombie stuff. We have 3 copies of a 9-tailed fox. This is probably the best high level, level 6 or lower zombie monster that is completely free to obtain. That's why we are playing 3 copies. This card can special summon itself by attributing 2 monsters from your, and summon itself from your hand or graveyard. And also, if it's destroyed by battle, you can special summon 2 fox tokens to your field. And also it triggers when it's destroyed by card effect. And also, if it's summoned from the graveyard, which is usually how you summon this card, you can inflict piercing damage if it attacks a defense position monster. Next is 1 copy of Plague Spreader. It's just a guy that we get from the structure deck, and it's also a low-level zombie that you can just normal summon. And also it gives you access to some of your synchro monsters theoretically, but realistically, you probably won't be going to any other synchro monster other than the Zombie Dragon Lord in this 1k gem version of the deck. Next is Crow Tengu. This is the best card that you can revive using your Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord because this deck doesn't really go into the synchros that often, so this is probably your best bet in terms of targets that you can revive using your Dragon Lord. This card, when revived from the graveyard, can destroy one attack position monster your opponent controls. Yep, it has to be attack position, so good luck if your opponent just summons everything on defense. And we're playing 3 copies of Goblin Zombie. This is also within the skill restrictions. It is a dark level 4 or lower zombie monster. This card, when it inflicts battle damage, it can send the top card of the deck to the graveyard, but that is not the main focus. The main focus is if it is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can add a zombie monster with 1200 or less defense from your deck to your hand. Realistically, you're probably just going to use it as a zombie that you can normal summon, so you can have something for your Dragon Lord to banish to revive itself. And finally, we have 2 copies of Samurai Skull because the structure deck gives us 2 copies. This card, when a normal summon, can send a zombie monster from your deck to your graveyard. The card you will be sending will be Crow Tengu because we only have 1 copy because we only have 1 structure deck. So we will be using Samurai Skull to help us get the Crow Tengu to our graveyard. And the rest of our deck will be Spells and Traps. We're playing 1 Econ, 3 copies of Back to Square 1, 3 copies of Power Sink Stone, and 3 copies of Crevice into the different dimension. All of these are replaceable. You can play whatever staples that you have, but these are just the ones that are completely free to obtain. On the extra deck, we're having a bunch of links that we probably won't summon, and the most important monster, Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord. This card needs a zombie tuner and 1+ non-tuner monsters, but realistically, you're probably gonna make this using your skill anyway. During your opponent's turn, as a quick effect, you can revive the zombie monster from the graveyard, and also during your own turn, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 zombie monster you control and special summon this card. And it only has a attack of 2800, which isn't a lot, which does come up because, say, if you face against Blue Eyes, which can just normal summon a guy with 3k attack, you can have a really hard time. And let's have a look at the skill while we have a look at the boss monster. This skill is Red Eyes Undead Reborn, which is a new skill. During this duel, you cannot normal or special summon any monsters from your hand or deck, except for level 4 or lower dark and zombie type of monsters. The following effect can be used once per duel. Send up to 2 level 6 or lower zombie monsters from your hand to the graveyard, and then set a zombie reborn from outside your deck to your field, and send 1 Red Eyes zombie Dragonlord from your extra deck to your graveyard, and that monster can be special summoned, so it is treated as a monster that has been special summoned properly. And also until the end of D next turn, I think it's mistranslated because I have the Japanese version, it says D next turn instead of your next turn. You cannot special summon level 7 or higher monsters from your extra deck or graveyard except for synchro monsters. So no Baylor Jock unless you make it using Glow Up Bloom. So what this does is that basically you can have any number of zombie monsters in your hand and then use your skill, pitch them to your graveyard, then send your zombie Dragonlord to your graveyard from your extra deck, and then you can set a zombie reborn to your field from outside your deck. And what that card does is it basically revives any zombie monster by banishing the monster with the same name from your deck or extra deck. And you might be realizing a problem here, because we only have 1 copy of the structure deck, so we can't really banish a zombie Dragonlord to revive another zombie Dragonlord. So what we need to do instead is revive any other zombie and use the graveyard effect of zombie Dragonlord to revive itself. So you're gonna have to basically sacrifice a zombie monster on your field to bring this back out, but it is what it is, and that's what you have to do when you don't have multiple copies. But yeah, the deck's still playable, but it's just gonna be less good. And we'll quickly talk over the other 2 synchros because we won't be making them that often, but it is useful occasionally. Skeletal Dragon Felgrand is the better version of Crotengu, basically, because if you don't have Felgrand, you will be reviving Crotengu, but if you have Felgrand in your graveyard, you will always want to revive this card with your Red Eye Zombie Dragonlord. Now this card, when it's special summoned, so it doesn't have to be synchro summoned, it can be special summoned from, say, the graveyard. You can target 1 monster your opponent controls in the graveyard and banish that card. And also, if a monster is special summoned from the graveyard while this card is face up on the field, you can negate 1 face up monster's effects until the end of the turn. So it's basically 2 disruptions in 1. If you bring this card out using Red Eye Zombie Dragonlord as a quick effect, you can just banish a card for free, and then if your opponent revives anything from the graveyard, or if you revive anything from the graveyard, you can negate the effect of 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. So it's pretty good. But you do need to synchro summon this card properly, unlike the Dragonlord where you can just cheat it out from the graveyard. Finally, we have Immortal Dragon. This card is pretty good even outside in this deck, because this is a pretty good generic level 6 that can mill any zombie monsters, and it is even good in the TCG or Master Duel. If you play Punk Zombies, you can use this card to basically start your combo. This card during your main phase can send a zombie monster from your deck to your graveyard, and if you do, this card's level becomes the difference between those 2 monsters. So basically, if you send a level 4 monster, for example, this card's level will become 2, because 6 minus 4 is 2. And also, if a zombie monster is destroyed by battle, when this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card for free, but you have to banish it when it leaves the field. This rarely comes up, but it's there, I guess. So yeah. So here we have the slightly more expensive version, because this is only a version that uses 1 structure deck and 2 mini boxes from Tachyon of Galaxy. So it's still free to play according to my standards, so it is still pretty affordable, but it does have a lot of improvements than the last version, because we have access to the good zombie support like Mizuki, Unizombie, Al Ghul, and Sun Saga as our secondary boss monster, and also we have a lot of better tech cards as well, like Horror House, Dark Light, and of course Cloak and Dagger. So what this version allows us to do that the previous could not is utilize more millers like Unizombie and more copies of Samurai Skull to help us mill stuff from our deck to the graveyard, like a copy of Spectral Sword during your first turn, and then during your second turn you can mill a copy of Al Ghul Mazera, and then you can use your Spectral Sword to banish your Al Ghul Mazera and itself to make Sun Saga. And also, Sun Saga can pop a card if you have any Sacred Monsters in your graveyard or banished. And then Algum Misera can special summon itself after you banish it using your Spectral Sword. So basically, you get 2 monsters for free just by having 2 mills from your deck. And Mizuki is also pretty good because not only can it revive your boss monsters like a Zombie Dragon Lord, for example, you can also mill other things like Unizombie. So you can normal summon something like a Samurai Skull, and then you can banish Mizuki to revive a Unizombie from a graveyard, use your effect of the Unizombie to make it level 4, and then mill another Mizuki, and then just synchro summon into a Felgrand, and then that gives you access to a really strong boss monster that also has a really nice form of removal. So that's basically it for the deck. Let's have a look at the replays. Okay, in our first game we are going first, and if you notice that my voice sounds tired or unenergetic, that's because I am tired. I barely got any sleep, so excuse me if I sound weird or anything. Anyway, we're going first. We have zombies in our hand, so we could basically have access to combo. We're going to normal summon Samurai Skull to mill a Plague Spreader, and then we're gonna set one and pass. And our opponent is playing some kind of FTK, I think. They're going to grab Valhalla and then activate it, and then they're going to use its effect to special summon a copy of Tethys. And after that, we can revive our Crow Tengu as our disruption, and Crow Tengu can pop a attack position monster your opponent controls, and that is enough for them to scoop. We will take the win. Okay, in our second game, it showcases some of the biggest weaknesses of the deck. This deck has a whole lot of weakness, being a really cheap deck that only uses one structure deck and no boxes, but this one showcases one of the biggest weaknesses. So we open with a pretty good hand. We have access to Zombie Dragon Lord, we have the Crow Tengu in Graveyard for disruption, and then we have Econ plus Power Sync Stone. So one neat thing you can do with Power Sync Stone is that you can basically manually use both of add to both of the counters by yourself before your opponent can even do anything. So you can activate Power Sync Stone first, and then use the effect of a Zombie Dragon Lord, that's one effect, and then you can special summon the Crow Tengu and use its effect, and that's second effect. So after you use these 2 effects, you will have 2 counters on Power Sync Stone, and that's basically a skill drain. Your opponent cannot activate any monster effects on the field for the rest of the turn. But this doesn't really work if our opponent books a monster before we could special summon anything. So we're going to have our monster destroyed, unfortunately, and I don't think it would have mattered even if we had the Power Sync Stone with 2 counters the whole way through, because he can just make a big monster and attack over our stuff. And as you can see, we run into a problem that our monster only has 2 2800 attack, and our opponent has a Tachyon Dragon with 3k attack. And we don't really have a way to get rid of it with the stuff that we have. We usually could in more expensive versions by getting into Felgrand and banishing our opponent's monsters, but in this really cheap version we don't have a really good way to access that, so we're just gonna scoop. Okay, in our last replay, we are going to play the slightly more expensive version, but still really cheap version. We are playing against the mirror match, which is funny. Let's see who builds a better zombie board. Opponent is going first. They are going to use the skill to pitch a copy of Xiangxi plus a copy of Crow Tengu. That is basically full combo, and this is what you can basically do with a single Xiangxi in their hand. They can basically go into Immortal Dragon, and then go into Felgrand, and then go into a second copy of a Zombie Dragon Lord. So that is like the typical combo you want to do if you open with Xiangxi in your hand, but for this combo to work you kinda need 2 copies of it, because you need one to banish from your deck using your Zombie Reborn. That's why we are not using it even in the slightly more expensive version. Anyway, we're going to send the Mizuki and the other zombie. Well, I don't remember what that is. It's a copy of Plague Spreader. Our opponent will decrow our one and only Dragon Lord, which really sucks because we only have a single copy, but that's not the end of the world. We still have ways to get it back to the extra deck. One of the ways is to use the effect of the spell in the graveyard to shuffle it back, and the other way is using Sun Saga, and we will be using the latter. We're going to special summon a Felgrand, they will special summon a Felgrand, and we will banish the Zombie Lord, but they will banish our Felgrand. Our opponent will be summoning a bunch of stuff, and thankfully not enough to deal lethal damage, and especially not under our horror house that we have set. We're going to flip that monster face down so it doesn't negate our monster effects if we summon from the graveyard. We're going to banish Spectral Sword and Al Ghul to make a Sun Saga, and that is the combo that I have been talking about. Sun Saga will return both the Dragon Lord and the Felgrand to the extra deck and pop both of his monsters. He will protect their monster with his own Al Ghul, but that's fine. We have enough monsters to go to lethal. And our own Al Ghul will also summon itself when it's vanished, and also it turns itself to level 7, which is really nice, so we can use it plus our Uni Zombie to make our own Dragon Lord again from the extra deck. And then we're going to single summon again for a Felgrand, and that is probably the best end board you can ever hope this deck could make. And our opponent will be scooping. Good game.